Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Who Needs a Classroom podcast. My name is Shreve, aka C.ShreveTheProfessor. Today, we're going to talk about moderation. I'd like to remind you that I always taught college kids, so my point of view is oftentimes geared towards adults, so my language might not be the best for those young listeners. Just a reminder, parents. Moderation. This is an important concept that you'll face throughout your life, I think, or struggle with, or, you might get a hold of it and then realize you apply that over and over, or you might, have to relearn that, as we oftentimes do in life. So an immediate point of reference I have for moderation is a colleague of mine. I didn't always have a peer in my career of teaching at a university because I kind of got my full-time gig as a lecturer when I was like 26, and then there weren't really any other young full-time folks, so I kind of didn't have that many folks to kind of relate to. But at one point I did, and it was kind of a lifelong friend who ended up getting the same master's I did, and then came on as an adjunct instructor for I think like 2.5 years, something like that. And we were old friends, so we ended up teaching some of the same classes. Kind of, he taught an epidemiology class that I'd never taught, and I taught a class on weight management and on lifestyle disease risk reduction. And we kind of compared notes about the things we taught about, and we also I think both taught an introductory health and fitness class. Excuse me. And then we would kind of just talk about some of the similarities across the subjects. And one of the principles he kind of pointed out that comes up over and over again is moderation. It's kind of finding the right amount of exercise to do. It's like a little bit of alcohol actually per day actually kind of protects you in some ways from heart disease and from strokes in a certain way. But if you get out of control with it, that protective effect is washed away. So it's something you see over and over again is, you can have some red meat, but don't have too much. You can have, certain things in the right amount. So we kept kind of seeing this moderation idea, and then it became a joke for us anytime, if we'd go to the gym and work out too hard, because we were kind of hanging out at the time, and we would, if we went to the gym and we're working out and one of us complained from the day before, like, man, we did too many reps on bench or whatever. We kind of developed this joke of like, basically, moderate, motherfucker. You should have done a better job of like not doing those extra 3 reps, and it would happen, if you went out drinking and you felt horrible the next day or that night, you just got a little carried away and you're like, man, you need to moderate, motherfucker. It became this joke we had, and part of my language and all, but that was what we would say. And it kind of just kept coming up, and it became a joke for us to ourselves. And then we almost kind of ended up telling our classes about it. And it kind of, you'd see it coming up over and over and over again. And it wasn't really so much the profanity, but that kind of added this humor aspect to it. And so that was kind of the original context for what brought this to my mind about moderation was many years ago, a fellow teacher and me and myself, just realizing that sometimes you just got to moderate, motherfucker. Whatever it might be, you might be too stressed out. You realize when you're teaching about stress that the right amount of stress is necessary for kind of optimal functioning. So you need some stress, but you got to have the moderate amount. Same thing with most kinds of exercise. So it's interesting. So that's what I wanted to get into today with this concept of moderation. So there's many quotes about this. One I like it goes back to Socrates, I think, and it's I think basically something to the effect of in all things moderation, and he kind of points out including moderation, because like most rules, you can break them sometimes. Sometimes you need to, if I'm gonna be the rapper I want to be, I got to commit to, a work ethic that maybe isn't moderate. Maybe it's really above and beyond maybe what's required, but it's what I want to get to where I want to go. And so moderation in some things, you got to sometimes just not use that, because there's a time and place for everything, I think, kind of so to speak. So this has been discussed many times by many different philosophers and teachers, but moderation kind of helps keep you, I think, on the rails sometimes. I think an easy point of reference instantly is kind of alcohol or like substances, things that I think especially with alcohol, if you don't moderate your intake literally of one night at the bar, by the time you get to drink whatever it is for you, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there, things kind of change, and you have gone, and because you weren't moderate in your intake, you kind of end up in a drunken state or towards that, which can equal different decisions. Sometimes it equals, you end up drinking way more after that, all kinds of things. But I think that's where alcohol is kind of an easy kind of instant way to have a point of reference for moderation. If you lengthen that out to more chronic use, where the person drinks, consistently on a regular basis, and not to a moderate amount, and then their duration and they're, kind of doing this all the time extends, then those effects are entirely different, and end up, having physical damage, can end up having obviously social damage and kind of family trauma and whatnot. So again, all that comes back to moderation. So I think that's where some of the history with like a tolerance movement, or no, temperance, is that it? Temperance? Something like that. Movement, that has some history in the U.S. of kind of linking it to sin or to, bad social ills type of thing. And so I think alcohol is a point of reference. I think you could point to a reference, obviously, in modern America of moderation would be food, what we intake as far as, fast food consumption or salt intake or, sugar intake or whatever it might be. We're not very moderate with a lot of that. And then sometimes if you look at like fruits and vegetables, we're on the low side. So we need to be much lower on our intake and much more moderate on our intake of, some of our most kind of, salt-laden, sugar-laden, fat-laden foods, and, kind of up the ante on much of our, plant sources. So you see that with, again, nutritional intake. You see it with stress in America. I think a lot of folks, you ask them, what do you do for stress reduction? And it might be like watch Netflix. Or, hopefully during, 2020, folks have had enough time on their hands to figure out some way to reduce the stress. But a lot of times you talk to folks when they're in the kind of the busy, go America, and they don't take time for themselves. They just, maybe they have a drink with friends after work, but they're not really taking that much time for rest and relaxation. So if you're not doing something there, it's kind of like the fruits and vegetables. You need fruits and vegetables. You need rest. You need relaxation. Your body also needs stimulus, of course, too. But a lot of the time, folks are under such, kind of stimulus stress that the rest process is kind of tuning out, checking out of things. So it's tricky to find moderation in all those, finding a way to be, stimulated by your day-to-day life, but not overwhelmed by it. Finding that moderation, essentially. When you look at this from a physical perspective, again, I've talked about, kind of the exercise science or the physical point of view, because, again, I used to kind of teach in that, and then I was an athlete before. But when you think of, what's your optimal training regimen, what's the optimal amount of exercise for you, you end up in a place where, if you're my age, if you're heading towards, 40 at some point, you need to, not get injured. You need to not have setbacks. You realize if you take some time off and you jump back into it, you can strain your back or strain your shoulder. That can limit you for a week. It kind of makes things take longer. So you have to be more moderate with your exertion, with your intensity, with your duration, with all the factors related to training. So you realize for sure with when you're kind of the dad bod trying to get back in shape with your 10-year-old and teach him some things about, footwork with a speed ladder and jump rope stuff. When you're jumping back into that, you can do too much. And, you can, we tried to go, trail running the other day. And for some reason I didn't wear my ankle brace and was just running along. My trail shoes were kind of loosely laced. And next thing I know, I rolled my ankle. So you got to find ways to not, have these setbacks as you get older. So again, moderation in all things. You realize, again, I love the Socrates. I think that's the point of view for that, for the, moderation in all things, including moderation. If you're at your brother's wedding, maybe you don't go so moderate there. Maybe you could turn up that night. Maybe that's the right time and place for that. In life, it is okay to have extreme values for these things. If a close family member dies, it's okay to feel the absolute bottom of that kind of solemn grief. You don't have to just even that one out. It's okay to feel that. It's okay for the pendulum to swing, way out to the side. But I think the idea of moderation is to bring it back to the center, and the idea of staying centered and how that's very powerful. when you realize like you have this super high and you realize that you're going to come back to the center, that helps you not to feel a crash down. It helps you to say, okay, this is the normal, this is where we kind of reside, and that was awesome, but I'm going to come back down. Sometimes folks have that highest of highs and struggle with, figuring out how to come back down to normal. I think we've mentioned that on some topic before. The idea. So moderation is one kind of, version if there's a word I'm talking about. But I was thinking, kind of related words and whatnot. And if I think of moderate or moderator, I kind of head towards politics kind of in my mind. Like sometimes we need a moderator as a really vigorous debate. If we, think of how the political moderates have kind of been lost. Folks have swung, towards these extremes. So I think in that arena, moderation is a place where there's much work to do. It used to be kind of a powerful thing to be a moderate because then you could reach across the aisle and work with other folks. But when the primaries are so kind of jaded, you have to show your stripes and how you're kind of true blue or you bleed blood red or whatever their little slogan ends up being. You have to really show that you're energizing this base, and then that equals kind of inherently this polarized contrast when it comes to the general elections or when it comes to kind of what's happening on the larger scale in the U.S. So I think when you think of politics, that's a great place for moderation to be kind of applied and in some way used, because if you want to get some things done, compromise is the way that you're going to move forward. If you stay over here and say, no, we won't move, and they say the same thing, then we're not moving anywhere. We're gridlocked. So you got to find a way to kind of meet in the middle. And this can be demonstrated with human relationships too. If you aren't willing to compromise or find a middle ground or somewhere kind of more of a moderate position, then it can be very difficult to get along with folks. I was kind of thinking of this again on the personal level with like emotions. If you can find that middle ground, or kind of I said that with kind of the highs and the lows. If you can find, it's okay to feel anger, and sometimes something in life can make you feel extreme anger, and it's okay to feel that, but it's sometimes that can make you fly off the handle, of course. So it's sometimes better to maybe if you feel that, realize, okay, I feel that now, but that's temporary, and I'm glad I realized that's temporary because that can help give me some space from it, and I can come back towards my kind of grounded point of view, and hopefully sooner the better, because anger can be so powerful, or whatever emotion that is. Emotions can flood you in a certain way, so it's really helpful if you can understand that middle ground and kind of give them space and step kind of into the eye of the hurricane as opposed to like in that really powerful eye wall or whatever. Cool. I got the highs and lows, hit emotions. I think as most of the things we talk about, it's that gray area. It's that application. It's when do you use moderation and to what extent. And so that requires situational awareness. Is this, I was saying earlier, kind of, if it's your brother's wedding and maybe that's the time to turn up, that's one thing. But is Friday night, just because it's the first Friday night of the fall, is that enough of a reason? Sometimes folks find any reason to, especially in college, I think, to say, go ahead and have an amazing time. It could be the first Thursday of the semester. Oh, now it's the first Friday of the semester. Oh, it's the first Saturday night of the semester. So off the rip, this semester is just, partying, and then, it's the first Monday night football. It's wild to see folks find reasons to, to be less than moderate, especially in the college crowd. But adults, not adults, those are adults too, but folks who are outside of school, folks who are much older, who kind of know better, also find reasons to not be moderate. So, find the right reasons to break your rules. If you feel like this is your kind of comfort zone of normal activity, maybe sometimes at a Super Bowl party you might have, if your team wins the Super Bowl, maybe you have a few extra drinks and you kind of take it a little beyond moderation, but maybe it's not every time. Figure out what your moderation, ideal is for you. And when it's okay to flex your rules or to bend them a little bit. And, again, sometimes in life, maybe I don't get enough exercise. That'd be one where I need to be more moderate and kind of bring that up. I do okay in physical activity, but I don't get enough of like really get my heart rate up and really getting that sweaty like workout that I used to get. Need to get more of that. But maybe I'm overcommitted sometimes to writing raps, and maybe I need to pull back, but maybe that's what I want. Maybe in that case, I'm less than moderate because my goal is of a steeper trajectory. And so in that case, I've made a calculated decision to not be so moderate there. I want to be more vigorous, kind of like if we're using exercise terms. I'm going to go more towards, this higher commitment level as opposed to just being so moderate. And so I think it's okay to have this midpoint in life and sometimes, raise things up to it. Sometimes realize, okay, in the case of exercise, I want it to be brought up. In the case of music, I know it's probably above and beyond what, my commitment level may be beyond what's not necessarily healthy, but above and beyond what maybe is kind of the norm. I don't know, but it's not the norm for those who make it. I feel like those who make it are all automatically at this different level. So that's what I'm comparing myself to. So I want to make it. So if you want to make it, you gotta go hard. So in that case, it's not such a moderation level. It's like, I'm going to go above and beyond. So I don't know. The moderation thing is tricky. You got to figure out in which situation to be, up, down, or in the middle and whatnot. So situational awareness is a key one, like everything else we end up talking about. And I'll leave you with the kind of Socrates point, I believe it is, like to moderate your moderation. Don't hold yourself to always be in this even keel. It's okay to be up, be down. It's okay to, holding yourself to an impossible standard is impossible, right? So you don't have to always be this calm center of the storm. Sometimes the storm feels extra rainy and you get wet. You're not just this perfect still being. If you were, you'd be in this full Buddha nature that maybe we can all aspire to, but is not easy to attain. So thank you for listening to me ramble on about how it's important to moderate, motherfucker. It just is. It's one of those things. Find your ways and your reasons to apply and to less apply as needed. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back soon. I will catch y'all later. Who needs a classroom? You do. I do. We do. Peace, y'all.